Hello, I'm Robin. Welcome to Bookspin. So, this is the book we're looking at today, Destination Universe by A.E. van Vogt. This was originally published in 1952. And this particular copy that I read is an ex-library copy from 1953, first British edition. Quite a nice vintage hardback, I think, even though the cover is a little bit tattered due to age. Anyway, this is my first time to read Van Vogt, who is quite a renowned figure in classic science fiction, especially Golden Age SF. And this is a short story collection. So we've got 10 stories in here, all of which were originally published in magazines during the period 1943 to 1950. And there are some pretty intriguing themes throughout these stories. Things like interstellar travel, mysterious technology, and time travel, things like that. So there's no shortage of engaging sci-fi concepts in here. However, I would say that the quality of the stories is a little bit variable. The storytelling itself is a bit hit and miss. I definitely enjoyed some stories more than others. And you'll find this with a lot of short story collections. They can be a mixed bag. But I don't regret reading this. I think it provides quite a good insight into Van Vogt's imaginative prowess. Unfortunately, there aren't any stories in here that I would say I would give 5 stars for, but there are a couple that come pretty close. So I'm going to do what I usually do when I review a short story collection, and I'm going to focus on those few stories which stand out to me the most and are most memorable for me. So there are a couple of stories in here which I really liked, and they both have quite a similar setup. They're both survival tales, and in both cases we've got a lone explorer from Earth who gets stranded on an alien planet and has to solve some kind of riddle in order to survive. So the first of these stories is called Enchanted Village. And in this story, we have a protagonist who crash lands on Mars with no food and a very limited water supply. And his spaceship is totally buggered. So there's no way out for him. Or is there? He comes across an ancient and mysterious Martian village, seemingly abandoned a long time ago. It's a kind of relic of an ancient civilization. And as he tries to adapt to the harsh Martian environment, the village begins to react to his presence in surprising ways. The village is itself some kind of organism or machine, maybe, that responds to him and might be able to help him survive, possibly. So it's an interesting concept, and this story is a bit of a weird one. It does feel quite fantastical, almost dreamlike, even, and with quite an ambiguous ending. But I did enjoy it. It's atmospheric. It's entertaining. Think of it a bit like Andy Weir's The Martian, minus any semblance of realism or science. A fun little tale of survival. The next story, which follows this one, is called A Can of Paint. And I think this one is probably my favourite in the whole volume. And this one is also pretty weird. Oh, it's a bit more humorous in tone. In this case, we have another explorer who becomes the first person ever to land on Venus. And when he gets there, he finds a strange alien artifact, which turns out to be a can of paint in the middle of nowhere. And upon picking it up, it sends a telepathic message to him, and it squirts some paint onto him. Right? So, but this is no ordinary paint. The paint begins to spread across his skin, on his body, and he can't get rid of it. No matter what methods he tries, it won't go away, and it becomes increasingly threatening. It turns out that this paint is an advanced form of technology that has been set up by the Venetian civilization as an intelligence test. So it's kind of a weird premise. And again, we've got this sort of dreamlike feel going on, this bizarre dream logic. It's pretty mind-boggling, but it's also quite light-hearted and entertaining at the same time. So I do think that's quite a clever story. A can of paint. And finally, there's one more story that I want to mention. It's the last one in the volume, and it's called The Search, which is definitely worth checking out. This is a kind of sci-fi mystery tale. The premise for this one is we have this character who's a traveling salesman who wakes up at the start of the story in a hospital with no memory of the past 2 weeks. So he is determined to uncover what has happened, and he retraces his steps, and he encounters a mysterious young woman who is also selling things. She sells these advanced gadgets, super advanced gadgets, with her father. And one of the things she sells is a fountain pen. It's kind of everlasting fountain pen. It never runs out of ink. And what's more, the ink can change colour. So the story gets a little bit stranger. He delves deeper into the mystery, and he discovers his connection with this woman to an intricate time travel plot, and he must navigate a complex web of events to try and understand his true purpose. So it's quite an ambitious story. I did enjoy this one, but I do feel like there's so much going on. There's quite a lot to unpack. I think it could easily be expanded into something bigger. Maybe even a full-length novel or a novella. I think that would probably do the story justice. But still, good fun to read. These were the 3 stories that stood out for me. The rest were okay, but not something I would go out of my way to reread. Often the ideas were interesting enough, but the stories themselves didn't really do anything to grab my attention. Sometimes the writing felt a little bit clumsy, and I've already started to forget about some of these stories. So, all in all, I'm glad I read this book, if only for those 3 stories which I mentioned, which I liked. If you're a fan of Golden Age SF, you'll probably get something out of this collection. I'm going to give Destination Universe 3 stars. I don't know if this is necessarily the best entry point for getting into Van Vogt's work. There's probably better stuff out there, to be honest. It may be worth exploring more of his long-form content. I'm not sure which of his novels I ought to read or to start off with. I've heard that his novel, The Voyage of the Space Beagle, is pretty good. So if I see a copy of that out in the wild, I'll pick it up. Anyway, you'll have to let me know what you think in the comments. That's all for today. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you again soon.